Okay, so obviously the important thing when it comes to focus really is, as we discussed, to sort of think about those three elements, you know. So what is the physical environment? What is here? What is present? What are the buildings here? What is the landscape like? What's in those buildings? Are things like tables or desks or chairs mentioned, and water and so on and so forth. We also want to focus potentially on characters and potentially what they're doing, either to the environment or to each other, what they're talking about. And we also want to focus on time. So that is what I'm going to be looking at as we move through this. And in the opening here, we're told about a wall. We're told it doesn't look important. It's built of uncut rocks, roughly mortared. And we're also told it's not much of a dividing wall. However, we're also told that this wall is important. Okay, so our focus right at the start. Okay, so starting focus is on an apparently nondescript wall that is nonetheless important. We know this because, firstly, it opens the novel. And secondly, we're told the idea of the wall is important to the people who live here. So thinking here about environment, this is mostly environment here, really. We can't really say much about the time because we haven't really sort of had any indicator of what the time is, how time is progression, and we've certainly not been introduced to any characters yet. But we're sort of given some hints about the age of this place as well, so about 7 generations. There'd been nothing more important on this world than that wall. Okay. So as we move on here, you get some more discussion here, really. We are told here about the place itself. So we start off small. So the start here, the focus starts small and zooms outwards, because now we're introduced to a city, or at least the industrial part of a city. Okay, so that provides us with more setting. Okay, and the important thing to note here, what I would also think here, again, do remember sometimes absence, sometimes something that isn't there is as important as something is. At this point, we're not told, or well, we're not introduced to any people or characters. Now, that is unusual. If I was writing up the answer to this, I would find this unusual, and I'd start to speculate, and I'd start to think about why this is the case. I think personally the case for this is the idea of the wall separating out the inside, outside, well, basically separating things, must be really important to the plot if it's introduced before anything else. This idea of division, this idea of a wall separating things must be crucial, because otherwise the author isn't going to spend the first page of their book describing a wall unless either the wall or the idea of the wall, which is what they're talking about here, is really important. There must be something of importance about this wall. Okay. And now the focus zooms out once more. We're shown more of this place. And finally, we see signs of life. Although no one particular person has been introduced yet. So just from this first page, just from looking at that shift in focus from the wall through to this sort of industrial area that the wall separates off, through to the wider picture of this sort of city with roads leading to it and people moving. And of course, the really important thing, the absence of anything else, the absence of people, really, beyond a brief mention. We've learned a lot about the structure here, and we can talk a lot about this. We can talk about the fact that the focus is on the environment, that the focus is on this idea of a wall, this idea of division between one thing and another. Moving on, what we can see here is, again, glimpses of stuff. And this is quite interesting as well. And again, we're dealing with environment again and people. The word spaceship here.
Yeah, and the rocket pad before as well.
Yeah, they suddenly show us, don't they? Okay. So this gives us this sudden introduction of a new focus on basically of this in passing. It's only briefly mentions. Suddenly changes the story. Up till this point, we had no real idea of when, where this was set. This new information tells us this is probably sci-fi. And again, we've got a bit of a skip outside time here. So this bit here, I would say, it occurs outside time. It's giving us a big picture view of what this place is normally like. And why has the author done this? This could be so we know what's about to happen is out of the ordinary. And our guess is supported as we move on, because we are introduced to the first person who isn't given a name. We are told that she is wearing a defense armband. So that could indicate potentially some sort of military presence. It could indicate potentially police or something like that. However, we're also told this is very rare. So we've got some dialogue. We're told that her presence is rare. And it potentially tells us something about the tone of this story as well. Firstly, if this is an unusual event, having sort of like somebody wearing a defense armband, which we can guess from the context might involve some sort of military presence, some sort of guard or something like that, it tells us that this is a society, this is a culture that doesn't really need or want these things. So it tells us a bit about the society and culture. The spaceship tells us roughly that it's potentially set sometime in the future, potentially even on a different planet. The dialogue as well, where she says, we're shutting down for today, brothers. Also, you could sort of go into that a bit, although this is border on language analysis. But for someone who is apparently occupying an official position, she doesn't sound official. So we can already get quite a lot out of this. And all I've really looked at here is environment. I've looked at people, or the absence of people, and I've looked at time. So that is roughly how you start to think about focus and how focus shifts. And we've already got at least 3 key points of focal shift that we could work from here.